Hi there. Welcome back to Maryland Divorce and Custody, Celebrity Divorce Edition. I think it might be number 5. I'm here with my very, very good friend, Melissa McDonald, and we're going to do updates on some of the celebrity divorce and child custody things that we've talked about over the course of 2020, 2021. As always, Melissa's got the topics, and I'm going to try and answer some of her questions the best I can. And I'm really excited to do this. Let's get into it. Melissa, what do you got?
Hi, Amos. I'm thrilled to be here. I kind of wanted to, I checked on some people that we've talked about before just to see what was going on. And I kind of have maybe one question for each one so we can kind of do some quick hitters here. My first divorced couple is Jay Cutler and Kristen Cavallari. Now, one thing that had happened after they filed for divorce was that Kristen said on a podcast or something that she decided that she kind of missed Jay, I don't know, and then went on some dates with him, and then remembered that he's kind of a jerk and that she does, in fact, want to divorce him. So I don't know whether dates is like actual dates or dates is like sort of a euphemism for something else. But I do recall, but that made me think, I remember just from the bar exam that there can be some issues if you're doing a divorce and you have dates after. It can mess up, I think it can like mess up some things. So can you warn people about the risks of returning to the poisoned well once you have filed for divorce if you're trying to get divorced? Is there any problem of like reuniting briefly with your soon-to-be ex-spouse?
Look at you with a great question. All right. So a couple of things here to unpack, and I'm going to do the issue of adultery. Let's call these dates what we think they are. Let's say they were hooking up. Let's say they were having sex, right? If in the state of Maryland, if you know that your spouse has cheated, has committed adultery, and you then have sex with them again after you have that knowledge, it's this concept called condemnation. And it is, I would say a product of the way the laws were written 50 years ago or later or whatever they are, but it is still good law to this day. If you have sex with your spouse after you know they have had sex with someone else, you have legally forgiven the adultery.
Really?
Which is interesting legally.
That's wild.
Think about it also from a common sense perspective. Some people in these situations, they want to work on their marriage, right? And if you're going to work on your marriage, oftentimes intimacy is part of working on your marriage. And I've had to tell people, yeah, sure, of course, work on your marriage, go to marriage counseling. I got to give you this crappy information though. If you have sex, if you know that your spouse has cheated and you have sex with them in the course of this marriage counseling, in a sense, you have forgiven the adultery. Now, you can still argue about it, you can talk about it in the case, but legally, you have condoned the adultery, right? So that's why.
So it's no longer a basis, like if you're trying to get divorced based on adultery, like you can't say that anymore.
It's a defense, yeah.
Oh, wow, that is really fun and unexpected.
Okay, now, what you were kind of talking about, I think more the next topic is the idea of if you're filing for divorce and the grounds for divorce is some sort of separation period in Maryland. And this is really applied up until 2 or 3 years ago, was a little bit more applicable. And I'll get to that why in a second. But one of the factors or the elements of a separation is no marital relations. So yes, if you had sex with your spouse while you were supposed to be separated for 15 years ago, it was 2 years, then it became 1 year, that resets the clock on your separation, which is pretty wild to think about, right? Now, well, let me tell you this story. I actually had, in my opinion, a case several years ago. The other side, in my opinion, tricked my client into, they thought that there was going to be a real reconciliation. My client and their spouse had sex. The other side, the next week, filed for a dismissal of the divorce based on the sexual activity. So to me, it was completely contrived to shut out the divorce, right?
All's fair in love and war. All's fair in love and war.
Now we have mutual consent in Maryland, and like hallelujah, it's a much more modern approach to the dissolution of marriage. You can just do it by agreement, and so it's much more common these days to do the ultimate divorce being done on the grounds of mutual consent with a written agreement that resolves everything than a fault-based divorce or a one-year separation divorce. So that issue of sleeping with your spouse is kind of now, you get an agreement and it's not as much of an issue. But several years ago, it was a problem, and I had a very upset client who was completely taking advantage of that fact.
I have never been a big believer in returning to the poison well, like once you're broken up with someone, and I'm glad to see that I'm at least in part vindicated in that belief.
One of my former co-workers used to call some divorces and custody battles very expensive fights, because we had people reconcile. We had people reconcile inside a courthouse once, and what I mean by reconcile.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So next couple, divorced couple is Dr. Dre and Nicole Young. So they reached a financial agreement for their settlement. So my preliminary question is this. The court filings that were made said that Dre is worth $458 million. That's his net worth. But other articles sort of on the internet have said that his net worth is $800 million. But that feels like a pretty big disparity. I mean, is that just like market fluctuations? Is there, I mean, I don't know, like, can you like hide money? Like, I don't know. So is that just, should I not read too much into that?
I guess what I would say to that is part of my job is when people file a financial statement, and some of these cases in Maryland involve a financial statement that sets forth, their people's best estimate at their net worth based on, the assets on this list. Part of my job is to look at that with a critical eye, and it is very common that my version of the other side's financial statements look a little different in final math. Sometimes it's an estimate, sometimes it's, you look at like real property, right? You look at the value of your house. There's all types of sources of information you can look at for the value of your house. Mm-hmm. Currently, tax records, what your house is assessed at, is lower than, say, like what a realtor or an appraiser would come in and say it's worth, or what it says on Zillow or Redfin, et cetera. So there's ways to fluctuate it. Who knows what the Forbes articles about Dr. Dre's wealth is basing it on. I would say in Dr. Dre's defense, he probably knows more about the inner workings of his contracts and what percentages he has of certain companies than Forbes does or any other publication. But yeah, 458 million to 800 million is a pretty big gap.
It's a pretty big gap. But the final settlement was that Nicole Young receives $100 million, which is quite a bit of money. It's a lot of money. She forfeits her right to spousal support, which frankly I think makes sense when you're getting that much money. She gets to skip her jewelry, which is cool. She keeps like, a bunch of cars or whatever. She has to pay her own legal fees, which seems fair enough. And Dre keeps his masters, which is a really big deal. He keeps all his trademarks, and he keeps all his Apple stock that was part of what he got when he sold Beats to Apple. And he keeps like 7 houses or some like insane amount of property. So, I mean, $100 million is objectively like a lot of money, but is it a good deal is my question to you. I guess really what I'm asking is, how difficult is it when the rubber meets the road to challenge a prenuptial agreement if you have one? So
glad you brought up the prenuptial agreement. It seemed to me from a distance, there was a prenuptial agreement, and it sounded like, based on those general terms of a property division, it sounded like the prenuptial agreement controlled, which means it was probably done And I think I said this in our video. I mean, I would have been shocked if Dr. Dre and I think his wife's name is Nicole. She's also an attorney. It would shock me if their paperwork wasn't, you know, legit, or like, I don't want to say airtight, but like, you know, is going to survive a collateral attack. So 2 points on that. One, when you have an individual, like a one-of-one individual, like a Dr. Dre, those are, like in Maryland, we have the property division is an equitable division. If I was representing like someone like Dr. Dre at that level, I would have no problem making an argument that this person is a one-of-one. They're not a regular employee, or, you know, they're not your next door neighbor, right? This person is a savant. You know, the reason why they have all of these assets and trademarks and patents and masters to their music is because they are who they are. And so in a less than 50-50 division of marital property, doesn't shock me in that respect. With respect to no alimony being paid when you get $100 million, the argument is essentially you got $100 million. If you can't get by on that, you don't, you know.
That's your own fault if you can't get by on it.
But that also could be very much a product of the prenuptial agreement. Again, Nicole Young was an attorney. It would be expected that she's going to be self-supporting. The argument against that would be she's grown accustomed to the Dr. Dre lifestyle. And I've seen some of her Instagram posts. She enjoys the Dr. Dre lifestyle as the CEO.
Who wouldn't?
But when you have $100 million, you can invest it in ways that even if you don't work ever again, you're going to make, for all other human beings, massive amounts of money on return on your investment. And so that doesn't surprise me either. As far as attacking a prenuptial agreement, I've had a slew of these recently, so they're right in the front of my mind. Basically, the people entering into it have to have the capacity to enter into an agreement, right? So you can't have a, you know, drug or alcohol. Well, not to say you can't, but if one of the people signing the agreement is so altered in their mind state, whether it's a mental health problem, impact of prescription or non-prescribed drugs or alcohol, they don't have the capacity to enter into the contract, right? So then that's one of the attacks. Another attack is duress or threat or coercion, right? You don't sign this, this is going to happen, right? And in prenuptial agreements, oftentimes that threat or coercion is, you don't sign this, I'm not walking down the aisle, right? And so the best way to make sure that to avoid that avenue of a collateral attack is to make sure that the signing party, the party that is maybe on the short end of the stick or is not having their assets protected, gets a copy of the proposed prenuptial agreement well in advance of the wedding, is given the opportunity to hire their own attorney to review it. In some cases, I will tell my clients to pay for the attorney, to pay for a consultation for them to, the other side, to review the prenuptial agreement. Plenty of time to think on it, ruminate on it, sign it well in advance of the wedding, right? So you want to, and there's factors that go into that, but like, for example, if the other side never graduated from high school, happened to me recently, you need to give that, you need to err more on the side of caution. And that's when I might say, pay for a consult for an attorney. Don't, you know, the last thing you want to do is have someone sign an agreement and then 20 years later be like, I had no ability to understand what I was doing. The third one, which is kind of the juicy, I don't know if it's a third attack or not, I think it's three. The juicy attack that comes in the tabloids or we read about more is the like unconscionability of a prenuptial. Like, no matter what happens in this marriage, you signing party get zero, no matter what. And there's degrees of it, and it's kind of like that old pornography test. I'll know it when I see it.
Right.
But you know, what's unconscionable will fluctuate on the terms of the circumstances of the two parties and the terms of the agreement. But essentially, like, you know, if someone's a multimillionaire and under no circumstances, like, can the spouse share marital property ever, and is never going to receive alimony, those are two giant red flags that this thing is too rigid and unconscionable.
That makes sense. So I guess she did get a pretty good deal out of it then. I mean, even though objectively it's a lot of money.
I don't feel like Nicole Young did too bad in her agreement. If I think she's set for life. I think her kids are set for life, and hopefully, if they've done everything right, the kids are set for life.
Well, good for her. I'm happy for her. Yep. Our next celebrity divorce couple is Kelly Clarkson and her husband, whose name I can never remember because he's not really famous. So the place where they're at is they have finalized the actual separation of the marriage, like they're both single. They have a custody agreement in place for their children that they've agreed upon, so that's great. But they have not been able to reach a financial agreement. Sources have said that Kelly won't even entertain the idea of an agreement, that she will not pay this dude any amount of money unless it's ordered by the court. And one of the sticking points is, we talked about this in our last video, that one of the things that brought their marriage to an end was COVID quarantine, and they were on this ranch in Montana. So apparently the ranch is pretty valuable, worth like many millions of dollars. Kelly wants to sell the ranch and split the money and be done with it, or, divide the money somehow. Her ex-husband, I guess he is now, has decided that he wants to cosplay a Montana rancher and keep the ranch and live on it. So at one point a judge told him, said he can stay on the ranch as long as he pays the upkeep, and the upkeep is $81,000 a month. A month. And just to put that in perspective, the minimum pay for the top level public defender trial attorney is not that much more than $81,000 a year, a month. So he wants to cosplay rancher in Montana, which is fine. So he was ordered to, you have to pay these expenses. Kelly tried to evict him from the ranch at some point after that, because he can't pay, so. And apparently the situation was really messy in the sense that he was her manager, while they were married. And I find that to be very messy. So apparently this case is going to go to trial. Your girl Laura Wasser is representing Kelly, and they are in trial prep mode, and they're going to trial on this. So I guess my question to you is, and I know we've talked before about the benefits of reaching an amicable agreement. Because really, Amos Whitney is the person who benefits most, I think, from the case going to trial, because you're the person's paying you your very high rate of pay for trial prep. So my question is, and this feels very much like spite to me, we're spite trying this case. Is there a good reason to go to trial in a case other than, spite? And we can't reach an agreement because we have some sort of emotional attachment to the things that are at issue. Is there a legitimate, really good reason, if you could afford it, to just go to trial and try your luck?
Well, of course there are legitimate reasons to go to trial, and circumstances dictate that. Whether it's one side has, just taken a completely obstinate perspective. I had a case like that, and first of all, especially when it comes to custody of children and child issues, there are many, many, many legitimate reasons to go to trial. Easy one that pops into my head is a relocation case. There's only one parent there. It's very hard to compromise if one parent needs to be in, say, New York, and one parent needs to be in Georgia. It's not like we can go see each other on the weekends, right? Someone is going to essentially win where the kids are. I had a case not too long ago that just involved property, and my client was faced with, in my opinion, I think the other side had some mental health issues going on. Nothing so that they weren't a completely capable human being, but that they maybe were thinking with their heart and the brain was not talking to the heart too much. And that person just took outrageous positions when it came to the division of property. They had predetermined notions of what should be divided, what shouldn't be divided, who paid for what. None of it was applicable to Maryland law. Like none of it was applicable to Maryland law. It was just this person's opinion on what these two people's post-divorce life would look like. And it was excruciating because my poor client paid a lot of money to get to an agreement that I could have predicted, not to get to an agreement, to get to a result that if 2 months into the case, I could have penciled out something within 95% of accuracy of what the ultimate result turned out to be. Instead, we went through discovery, we had depositions, we had a private investigator. I mean, it just went off the rails, but it was either get a zero, my client literally get a zero, or get what they're entitled to. And the whole time we do cost benefit analysis. If I could get a deal that was within striking distance of offsetting my fees, I talked to my clients about that. But you know, it just never happened. In the case of, so I think I've said this before, the great Charles Barkley once said about gambling, gambling is not a problem if you can afford it. And
that's the truth.
the Clarkson thing kind of brings that to my attention. It sounds like the kids they figured out what they're going to do with their kids. So great, that's the most important thing. Get that aside. If two millionaires want to fight it out over their $81,000 a month ranch, and it's not having a direct negative impact on the children, I don't know what attorney's going to put down that case. And they can afford it. It's not going to bankrupt Kelly Clarkson, no matter what Laura Wasser's hourly rate is, and it's probably something like 10 times what mine is. But they can afford it. If that's what they want to do, they can. And to some degree, you can try to coach your clients out of making poor economic decisions. But I think it's probably also hard to tell Kelly Clarkson, who is uber successful, that this is going to have a really harmful long-term economic impact on her life, which is something I tell my clients, my regular people clients, even my affluent ones. You know, you can really set yourself back financially on a contested divorce. And like you said, you're paying the divorce attorneys. Like the divorce attorneys are going to get, my kids are going to have money in their college fund. You raided the college fund to pay for the divorce. Now, again, sometimes it's an unpleasant but necessary evil to have to do. And some attorneys don't care one bit about that interplay that I just talked about. But it's something that I talk to my clients about all the time. I just don't necessarily think it applies to Kelly Clarkson. And I have a hunch that Kelly Clarkson can afford this type of thing way more than her lesser known producer / rancher husband. So it could be a trial strategy. All right, you're taking a position I don't like. This is going to cost you, I don't know, $500,000 to get what you want. Good luck.
Yeah, she's in a position to try her case, but maybe her ex is not in that position.
But maybe it's not a spike. Maybe it's not a spike trial. Like, you know, if the guy is intentionally financially harming her, and I don't know the details of this, but like I think you mentioned, he got possession of the ranch. He was supposed to pay for it, and then he didn't. You know, Kelly Clarkson still has a credit report. Like she, you know,
right.
Still has bills. Maybe the ranch is in some sort of LLC or trust or something. But you know, there seems like there's some legitimate smoke on both sides there. It doesn't necessarily. I don't read that one as just a complete spike trial. But I could be wrong.
Fair enough. Maybe I'm just. You know, I can see not wanting to support be the person who's supporting your ex-husband, like cosplaying a Montana Rancher this week.
Well,
I respect not having any patience for that.
Who knows what she thinks he was doing on the ranch? Like I've had cases where someone's been like, "Why on earth would I allow them to care, husband or wife and their new lover to play at our beach house?" Like I've had people come in raving mad about that. I can understand that.
I get that too. Well, our last celebrity couple actually brings together a lot of the issues that we've already discussed. That couple being Kanye West and Kim Kardashian.
Oof.
Now, their situation is sort of a disaster. They're splitting up. This is sort of ongoing. Kim, I really like Kim. I'm sort of a Kim stan at this point. Kim is very much the adult in this room. I respect how much she's sort of come into her own, and she is very much projecting that she is the adult in this room. Sorry, excuse me. Let me take a sip from this.
Oh, is that go Bills, right?
Yeah, I got this just in time for the just after the playoff loss, so that was not very good timing for that to arrive in the mail. So bunch of things going on with Kim and Kanye. Kim and Kanye are both dating new people. Kim is dating Pete Davidson, who is very famous, and sort of a well-known person with his own well-known issues. She has said that she has not introduced Pete to her children. We'll sort of circle back to that at the end. Kanye has a new girlfriend, a young woman by the name of Julia Fox, who, and I don't mean this necessarily in a derogatory way, but more sort of a statement of fact, who is very much sort of a clout chaser, I think, in this situation. I mean, for whatever it's worth, she wants to be famous. She's very much famous now, so good for her. Congratulations. She is an actress and like a podcaster or something. I don't know what these kids are doing with their podcasts these days. Fun fact, she wrote an essay for Interview magazine about her relationship with Kanye after they had been together for 1 week. 1 week. If someone wrote an essay about me, Amos, after I've been dating them for 1 week, I would like call the cops. Like, what is this? Like, I mean, maybe I'm just very, for God's sake. So, and Kanye is very much like Kanyeing all over town. He's insulting Pete Davidson for wearing what he called mall clothes, which I find hilarious. Meanwhile, he and his lady friend, Kanye and his lady friend, are stepping out in these like insane all denim outfits with like black eye makeup where they look like sleep paralysis demons. But at least they didn't get those clothes at the mall, I guess. Kanye is out there writing like diss tracks about him having nannies, which I can't even like begin to unpack that because it will make me so angry. But that's like the thing that's happening. And also, according to Kanye, and this is not according to Kim, according to Kanye, he's sort of doing a lot of stuff where he's like not really respecting boundaries. Like this, again, according to Kanye, he's like showing up at the kids' schools to like pick them up. He's like showing up at Kim's house and like wanting to come in the house and like getting mad when security won't let him in and talking about how he's like the richest black man in the world and also these children's father. So how dare you not let me in? And I looked it up, and he is not the richest black man in the world, nor is he the richest black man in America, but he is worth like billions of dollars. Like Kanye is super rich, like good for him. But he's sort of generally out there in a very unsurprising way, like not really respecting boundaries and, just sort of like acting like Kanye, like all over town. I don't know if there's any like legal questions here, but I think do you have practical tips for people, not first of all about sort of setting boundaries with your ex, especially when you have children, like how do you go about setting boundaries? And also, do you have practical tips about introducing a new partner into a situation where you have children?
Man. All right, the boundaries issue. What makes this particular relationship so complicated, but also relatable to lots of folks, is that we know that Kanye has documented mental health history. I think it's pretty out in the public. Like I think it's like he's bipolar diagnosis, maybe some other things going on, and so that makes everything. My line of work is often, especially when it comes to child custody, is not a black and white world. There's a whole lot of gray area, and when you're dealing with mental health problems, the gray area expands. And so it's hard to say from like what, the media mastermind Kardashian Jenner, machine puts out there versus what Kanye puts out there in a much less regulated, out there into the atmosphere. I mean, I saw his videos about not being invited to one of the daughter's birthdays. And I saw comments on both sides, and that's a tricky one.
It is.
Because you really don't know what the circumstances are. If Kanye has been acting erratically with the family, then maybe it's not a good idea to invite him to the birthday party. On the other hand, like just a couple of weeks or months ago, I think weeks, Kim and the family are attending the big concert in LA. Like Kanye was in Saturday Night. They do public things together. I mean, I think Kim was part of one of his big concerts. Like they did like some sort of marriage ceremony. I mean, I think that's a very odd message to send to your children, but who knows? I mean, art is art, I suppose. But that one's tricky because on one hand, Kanye and the Kanye West, Kardashian-West children live in a different universe than regular children. Like the idea that Kim doing the right thing, not introducing her children to Pete Davidson, which is the right thing, and I'll get to that in a second, in terms of if this is going to be a tryst or a short-term relationship, you don't introduce your children to a short-term relationship. You don't want them to bond with someone short-term and then lose that bond. But on the other hand, they can't go out to like get a slice of pizza without it being all over the tabloid. So it's hard for me unless the Kardashians have like a social media lockdown that Kim and Kanye's kids don't know that Kim is dating Pete Davidson. And likewise, that Kanye is making out on the floor with Julia Fox. There's like layers to this that without more information, I don't know what the answer is. And it's also kind of, when we're talking about Dr. Dre, it's a little bit of a unique situation in terms of the universe that these kids live in is entirely different than our neighbors' kids. Like, what Kim and Kanye are doing would not fly in my line, in my caseload. But then again, I'm not representing the owner of Skims versus the owner of Yeezy. I mean, who knows? The birthday party thing, it seemed like it worked out well. Kanye got invited from Travis Scott and Kylie Jenner let him in through security or whatever. There were pictures there of him participating. There hasn't been I didn't see anything like reports that he was hideous there. And so if you're co-parenting, like on one hand, if you want to have separate birthday parties, you can. In another world, if you're doing all this joint family stuff in other realms, and everyone else in the family is going to be invited to the child's birthday, and I think one of the cousins' birthday was a joint party, and like everyone else is there, but dad's not there, why wasn't Kanye there? Now, Kanye's actions might have explained it. Another kind of boundary issue that you didn't bring up, that I know is out there, is he bought the house across the street from them.
Yes, I meant to bring that up. Like, I mean, could make sense, but also could be bonkers, like hard to know.
So it's case by case. Like certainly that's a wonderful arrangement. I mean, if the two parents can deal with all the baggage that comes with like getting their newspaper and drinking their coffee in the front yard and seeing their spouse and their new interest, who knows? It can be great. The kids have a little bit more flexibility. You leave homework at dad's house. You can go get it if you're at mom's house. You can ride a bike. Childcare becomes much more manageable. It's great, except it doesn't work a lot in practical situations. I've had clients where they wanted to do this and it worked out wonderfully. I've had clients that did this and it was a colossal failure. It doesn't seem to me, from what I've seen, that the idea of Kanye buying the house across the street was a collaboration project. It seems like it was Kanye's going to do this because Kanye does things that he wants to do. That gives me a red flag that it's not exactly what it is. But let's not kid ourselves. Kim Kardashian-West's house probably has, state-of-the-art security, and Kanye's already not been able to get in there once. So, it's not like, you look out your window and you can see your neighbor's house. It's you look out your window and you see your gate, and then you can't see through your gate to see through their gate, and then to wind around the driveway down the mountain to like the pool side. So, it's not quite the same thing. But if it was my clients in a situation, and one parent was, I'm going to buy a house right across the street from you because you're never going to keep me from my kids. I've got some concerns there.
Well, the other thing that concerns me is that he had sort of buzzed off to Wyoming for several years prior to this, and now suddenly you want to buy the house across the street. Like, what are we doing here? Like, you didn't want to be here when we were married.
Honestly, my first reaction to whatever blurb I saw about him saying my kids are my priority. And I say this without knowing how frequently the kids were out in Wyoming, but
which may have been very frequent. Like, who knows?
I mean, pretty well established. He didn't live with the family for years, and so it's hard for someone. It's hard probably for most people, but like as I represent hundreds of people over the course of a couple of years. It's when people want to be with their kids, they're not several states away kind of voluntarily. I mean, Kanye can do whatever Kanye wants, wherever he wants. Now, I can't speak to his creative genius, and maybe he really felt like he needed to be in Wyoming, but that was certainly a choice. It's not like Kanye's boss called him up and said, hey, bud, you got to move to Wyoming. He's not in the military. He didn't get deployed to a base on the other side of the country. He said, I want to be in Wyoming for my creative process. And now he's saying several years later that his kids have always been his number one priority. I think he would have some work to do to show that that's really the case, which he can do. I mean,
and certainly there's always like, you know, you can never know. And people, maybe he really does believe that, and maybe he does care about his kids. And I'm not suggesting like, you know, of course he loves his kids. Like, I'm certainly not suggesting otherwise, but you know, I do think that's like, it's just like a red flag, you know, like.
Well, I think the easiest way, the safest way to talk about it is to say the two things don't seem to square up logically, right? Like, Wyoming.
There seems to be a disconnect here.
And now we have to live across the street from the kids.
Yeah, so that's a
go back
hot
to what you said about.
Oh,
finish my thought on introducing significant others. I kind of said it already, but if you're there's some degree of you have to trust the parent of your child to bring responsible people around. Like there's some degree of you kind of have to let go of this if you are the objecting parent and you want to know exactly who's everybody dating. You don't really get the right to know who someone's dating. You do have the right as a parent, and I don't mean this as a like constitutional right, but generally, you know, if someone's going to be around your children with regularity, you have the right to kind of know who that person is. And it's this balance of trusting your former spouse or the parent of your children for that person to be safe and responsible versus kind of, you also have a parallel duty to make sure your kids are safe, right? So if there's a legitimate concern about a new person around the kids, history of violence, history of substance abuse, mental health, legitimate mental health problems, not like you take a couple, you know, you get through the day with half a Xanax or something like that, or a Zoloft, like an actual diagnosis that would impact safety and health of children. Those are legitimate. You know, you don't like what someone's posting on their Instagram account, you know, that you don't get to say, you don't get to pick your former partner's new partner. And then with respect to introducing new people to children, like I said, the court's primary focus on that, they're not going to care about the new relationship as a new relationship. The court's going to look at this as, is there an impact on the children? Is it a negative or positive impact? And so my advice always to my client is don't introduce these people to your children until you know it's going to be a long-term thing. When they want a bright line rule, I say, don't even talk to me about it until it's been 6 months. That's just my rule, and it sometimes is longer, depending on how frequently you see them, whatever, station in life, other factors. You know, if that other person also has children, you don't want to make a blended family with someone after months of dating. Like there's an impact on the children. They bond with these people. They might not like. They may not bond at all. So like you think it's going to go peachy and roses, but it might not. That could have a negative impact on the original custody arrangement as it is. You know, if you have a 14-year-old girl and you're your new partner's got a 12-year-old girl or boy, switch the genders or get rid of genders altogether, and they don't mix, and they're supposed to live together all the time, you have a custody problem. And so you just got to be really, really careful about bringing somebody in to a new relationship. And then the factor that isn't going to be considered on as far as the court, other than common sense that I talk to my clients about all the time, is if you have the type of spouse that this is going to inflame, if they're not going to like this, then you should just be extra sure that this person is the one, because you're going to deal with a headache, right? And a lot of times headaches in my line of work end up with a bill for me for just kind of talking things out, how to cope with aggressive messaging, unpleasant interactions at a basketball game or something like that. It's never going to necessarily end up with me saying we should file a modification of custody, but you end up spending money with an attorney to talk things through. And if that relationship isn't going to last, don't keep it on the deep down level. Like make it a weekend thing, make it a when you don't have your kids thing, don't bring it around the children. Because if that headache partner gets a hold of it, you're complicating your life. And similar advice I give to my clients who say, once they've separated from their spouse, can I date? Can I, whatever. If it's going to make your spouse angry, maybe you should just not do it for the sake of the lack of headache in your life. If you're okay with the headache and the extra cost to it, fine, okay. It's not gonna have an impact on my evaluation of your case, but it might impact the things you're talking to me about, and there's a bill for that.
Good, I think that's good advice.
You'd think more people would listen to it.
But they don't, because the heart wants what it wants.
Some do.
Or maybe some other part. Maybe it's the heart, maybe it's something else.
Yeah. So
well, I think that's all the updates I think I have today.
That was awesome.
That was great. Like you're just like rapid fire in these.
Well, you had the right questions right from the jump. We need to do this more frequently. We're getting complaints for not doing it enough. And
who's complaining other than like I can think of maybe one person who watched this.
It's probably the same person. Anyhow, for anyone that made it through these videos, I appreciate it. I know Melissa appreciates it. Make sure to hit the like button, to comment and share on the videos, and we'll do this again sometime real soon. Thank you very much.
Smash that like button.
Smash the like button.
Smash it.